Good evening, and welcome back to my flat for another Blether with Heather. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by last year's winners of the Scots Media Person of the Year. That is the boys for the Dode Fox podcast, Mr. Paul McNichol and Mr. Ronnie Costello. Welcome.
Take the applause, thank you very much.
Right, first of all, for them that didn't care much about the podcast, because the Hands Up for Trad viewers, the Scots Language Award viewers, tell us a wee bit about the podcast.
The podcast itself started in 2019. Paul had been on another podcast of mine as we wheels got turning and thought we could do that. So he sent me a message and said I quite fancy doing it. Mm-hmm. And we sit here now 112 episodes later.
Aye.
Award winners, life's good.
Life's good?
Is that as easy as it was? I think that's how it happened.
I thought it was fairly simple,
Yeah,
it was.
So tell us a wee bit about yourselves then. You're originally from Ardler, eh?
Yeah, born and bred in God's country.
So Ardler isn't a scheme with the most reputation about Scotland, like it isn't like kind of Ratloch and Stirling or like in the Edinburgh schemes that Abdi kens about in Fears. Tell us about growing up in Ardler.
I think the people didn't speak about it because it's extra hard, and that's what it is. If you look at it, it's crazy. It's very different now. I mean, Ardler itself is one of these schemes that is. I had the multis, so I had 6 multis, I think it was, that I had 3 multis built in. Quick maths, about 18 different block or whatever. There was loads. And there was loads of like what we called them walk-ups, and there was a wee bit of grass area that people made their own 18-hole golf course. And I wish I was learning, but I'm not. And there was garages that you would play in, because why play in the street when you play in a garage that could have killed you? And then it just kind of one of these things. I was really young at the time, and it was like we'd moved to a walk-up and then moved to another house. And next thing I knew, it was like they were going to be bulldozing. They were going to be demolishing the multis, and that's what happened. I mean, Ardler's it'll always be home to me. I mean, when you go back now, and the shops are kind of still there, the community centre is still there in its form. The schools are still there, the church is still there, but there's just all these houses around it now. So it's a wee bit different as it is. I've a couple of pals that live up there now, and you go up and you wander around. It's not the same, but it's still, yeah. I mean, I always like going to watch old photos.
You get recognised when you go back.
There's that arsehole. That's probably about it. No, it's pretty chilled out. I love that. I mean, that's what I grew up for 12 years, and it's unique. But nobody speaks about it because it's so hard. I mean, that's a difference. You know, like boys like you.
Well, Broughty Ferry was a few.
No, it certainly was not Broughty Ferry. No, my formative years, like I grew up in the Hilton, and then from there I moved to Douglas because my old man, he was a copper, so he had a Polish house. So we stayed in Douglas for, I think I must have been about 6 to 14, 15. So I used to run with the toddy. Or that's what I tell people. They're in a shite bag and I'm not running with anybody. So yeah, it was the Hilton, but most of my memories growing up were Douglas, and it was great living in the schemes because, like, you wouldn't have wanted. You kind of sneered at people for the ferry, although you had a wee jibe about the ferry punters there. But you kind of sneered at them because they were snobs and toffs, and they thought they were better than you, I reckon, if you were for Douglas.
I hear holidays every year must be shite, eh?
Oh, it was terrible. I had a car, a family, just back in the day, the wealth was off the chart. But I was a Douglas boy, and that's kind of where I consider where I'm from, even though I was the Hilton area for about the first 5-6 years.
So I ken fae some old researchers doing that Ardler's in the most Scots-speaking parts of the city, according to the census for 2011. Would you say growing up in Ardler, it was mostly kind of Dundee Scots-speaking folk?
Without doubt, that's how we can. That's how we knew. Primary school, you went, you turned up, and that was about it. You didn't really achieve very much, right? And I went to the Rocky, so Rockwell as it was, and 2 years into that, they were like, well, it's shutting down, so you're either going to stay here then.
Sorry, Ronnie, your house got bulldozed and your school got shut down.
Yeah. The bizarre thing is, the school's still there. I mean, it's not doing well, but Morgan have been in it, Harris have been in it, loads of them have been in it. So, so that got shut down. So, one parent family, it was tough back then. Yeah, and so I went to the Rocky, and it was only when I moved to Craigie High at the time is when like English teachers and that would say, oh no, you need to pronounce it like this. This is how things are said, and we're trying to be real prim and proper. Whereas for 2 years at Rocky, we never really got an education because everything in the school was shutting down. Nobody really cared, and you didn't really bother. Like, you could ask me then what I want to do when I grew up, and I'd still be no idea. I'll living. Let's still be alive. Let's still here. Try and look for a future. That's it. And so, yeah, I think that it was then. That's when it started trying to get drilled out you. But when they were really kind of grammar become important, how you talked became important. If you were to stand up and do a talk in school, I remember you would get stopped and corrected maybe a little bit. Is that right? I'm not saying in a real embarrassing way, but someone would just maybe, if you'd said something, would be different. Whereas that was us. That's just us. That's what it's like here.
Getting corrected for speaking. There seems to be this kind of gradation a generation thing where maybe your parents' generation would get kind of scalped with the belt or whatever for using Scots, whereas I'm going to say our generation, maybe no Paul's, you'd get that kind of, you'd get maybe tell off for it in Dundee. There's a kind of shame about it. Hilltown, I had a look at the figures for there now. It's not quite say Scots speaking as Ardler, mostly because I think it's more immigrants bide in the Hilltown, but it's still way above your national average.
Yeah.
Is that what you felt in your area?
To be honest, similar to Ronnie's story, like when you're at primary school, you're that young, and I didn't recall anybody really pulling you up for saying, "Oh, you said that wrong there, wee man," or big man, because I was probably this height when I was a bairn. But when you got to secondary school, definitely, you definitely got pulled up for it. You got maybe about a month's grace, I would say, because it would lead up to the Burns poems, and you had to kind of learn any of them and recite it in front of the class or the scale if you were any good at it. But that was always a bit of an embarrassment. That was a bit of a minter. Just standing up speaking Scots. Speaking Scots was fine. That's cool with me. But it was standing up in front of everybody and remembering all these words that you weren't overly familiar with because you would probably just speak Dundonian, or you thought it was Dundonian on a
Burns is
daily
1,200-year-old, Ken.
Of course.
I do remember a lot of people doing it when I was at school, and we went to the same school.
I was at school with Robbie Burns before you said
I wasn't going to go there.
It
was just first editions.
But I'm just saying that, I don't remember a lot in my year doing a lot of Burns or anything like that.
I do.
And stuff,
and we were at the same school.
In the end, that's
a good 20 year apart, obviously.
Before anybody else jumps in there.
What's that 4 year between you? But I know. So how come? What I'm trying to get to is, again, for you that didn't ken, Dode Fox podcast is done mostly in Dundee, Scots. We're going to hear Blether about the bits that explicitly aren't in a minute. But how come you got to this age? Neither of you use Scots for your kind of official work. So how come you got to that age still having the confidence to use your own voices for your podcast?
Hello question. I'm thinking for a large part of my working life, certainly, I was working in a factory down at the bottom of the Kingsway in Dundee, the NCR, that built bank machines. So I don't know kind of anybody here's ever worked in a factory, but you get away with murder in factories. The language is coarse at best, and it was fluent Dundonian, so it was class. So, and no gaffer was ever going to pull you up and say, "What are you speaking like that for?" They're not caring. As long as you're doing the job, then that's fine. And then from there, I went to work in the civil service when I got paid off for the NCR, when they basically shut the place. And I noticed I had to kind of reel myself in. Even at the age of 31, 32, I started in the job that I'm in these days. And you had to reel yourself in because everybody was speaking like proper. That's what they would tell you at scale, speak properly. So that's the way I still feel like they're speaking proper English. Whereas it's hard to just be yourself. Although I let it seep in every now and again. And it's not really ended as in any bother or anything like that, but it's something that is just, it's natural, it's natural. It's no been kicked out as, it's no been trained out as, it's always been there, it'll probably always be there. But there are occasions when I feel like you've got to turn it on and off. And it's obviously not the best. Like it's keeping us Scots down, I suppose, when they make you think that you're not allowed to speak like that. But it is what it is. I've learned it very well, and just got on with it.
31-year-olds in the city of Dundee hate and no speak Scots for fear of no seeming proper in a job they're qualified to do.
Yes.
Aye. It's no great. It's no great. It's no.
No, it's just the line of work that I was in
Mhm,
and that I'm in. And like the longer that you stay in that job, sometimes there's people that I speak to. You're thinking, right, I better speak, and this guy's well to do, so I'll try and speak in his language. But when you're speaking to an ordinary punter, just like myself, speak away as I would normally to you or to Ron.
Interesting. And Ron, you were obviously working, Ken, in broadcasting, a radio DJ here.
Yeah, that was. I remember being at. My first job, I was a paper boy initially at 13, and then went and worked in a shop, and quick save as it was when I was 16, and I was there for 6 years, and it was class because you never thought about stuff like that. But when I was still at school then, and when you had the careers officer and whatever, and I never knew what I wanted to do, but for some reason I always said I wanted to be on the radio, and my dad knew like the head of sales or something at Radio 2 at the time. So I went up there and I met a guy that was in charge at the time, and he was like, "No chance, no speaking like that.
Nay, danger!
That'll never happen."
Radio T said you can't speak like a
the
Dundee.
guy that was there, I'm not saying I'm not going to tag him with that brush, but
because he still wants a gig if there's any gigs
No.
available.
there's no jobs out there. There's no jobs. It's a nationalism, whatever. But no, and I went there and I was like, "No chance, that's not happening." And I thought, and that's a 16-year-old. You know, and I think just then I'd either just been on a lad's trip to Magaluf at 16 and my world was open, and then went into DJ and stuff like that, and then just doing line, I thought I'll just go and do it at college. Then applied for the college course at Dundee. They just stopped doing it in 2000, so I went to their retail management because I was in retail and thought, well, that'll be easier. Done that for a couple of years. Didn't pass the second year, so if you're watching, Mum, sorry, she didn't count that yet. Because I just got the student loan and went to the bread. That's what I done. It was class. And then took a year out, worked night shift at QuickSave, still thought I could probably get in. Missed the deadline or missed the closing date to go to an office and do it, so I ended up doing audio engineering for a year. Then I ended up doing radio broadcasting for a year, and on the back of it, got to look after the sport for Wave 102 at the time, and that was kind of my in. And the biggest difference was, probably it was how you were saying things, but it was slowing down, speaking a wee bit clearer as well. And I think that got taught to me maybe at college, and it was probably because other people for around Fife, Dundee, there was a guy doing for Aberdeen that had moved down for it, somebody for Glasgow. So you were getting different people in Scotland. Everyone was maybe a wee bit the same, because at the end of the day, you didn't hear anybody reading the sport or the news that speak like this quick or whatever. So I'm not saying it's a character or a facade, but you've just got to pull it back in a little bit. And in all the years I've done, I mean, that was 2005, was there to 2010, then stopped for about 10 years and went back. Never probably had, if I listened back, the odd bit would fall into Dundee or somebody come on, you spoke to them, but in general, it was that's just sort of the character you went. It was more just slow down and pronunciate a wee bit more, and as soon as the mic's shut, you can turn to somebody else and off you go.
But you're no wrong, like, you didn't hear folk like speaking like they're Faye Adler on the radio. Like, they must be Faye somewhere, these folk that are on
Really?
there. But just to pick you up on a little bit of your language, because it's interesting, right? You describe using Scots as falling down into Scots. You describe it as Scots seeping in like sewage.
Yeah.
There is something psychological there, is there no? Like, that it's not quite the right thing.
No, it probably comes from skill. Just many lessons are getting tell off for speaking this way, I guess, when somebody's trying to get you to speak properly, as I keep saying. So that's always going to be there, I would imagine. But like, the older you get, the less I care. Like, nobody's going to come in and tell me not to speak the way I'm speaking these days. It's just not going to happen.
100%. So speaking, yesterday, in fact, we knew Macca, the new national poet for Scotland, Kathleen Jamie, and she was saying to us, the thing that'll make a huge difference, we working folk in Scotland, is realising that for a young age, like all ourselves, we're all bilingual. At least. Like, obviously, there's hundreds of Polish bairns here now that speak English, Scots, and Polish growing up around here, but you're at least bilingual, growing up in Arla, growing up in the Hilltown, wherever you come from. And the second we realise ourselves as bilingual, we'll have a raise in our self-esteem, we'll have a raise in our sense of value and what we can bring to the world. And she thinks that'll hit impacts on depression, it'll hit impacts on mental health, it'll hit impacts on drug use rates. Like, because you just, from a very young age, you will tell that what you are is valuable, what you are is worthwhile. Yous have had the similar experiences without watching this about Ken went to you Scots winning Note. Then yous won an award explicitly for using it. Have yous felt any improvement to your self-esteem or sense of self off the back of that?
I think it just, I mean, for us, the nomination came as a complete surprise, and then the award came as an even bigger surprise. But to win an award for being us, and speaking like we do, I mean, we've said umpteen times, doesn't matter who asks, deep down the podcast is just us two speaking about United, speaking about the game, speaking about anything else that's happened. The exact same conversation you'll hear, we are mate in the boozer, in his house, walking him for the game, the next day in your work. You know, if Paul Boss is watching this, Ken, he'd say, Ken, for an hour or something on a Monday, you speak to your mate about the game and be like batting forward. And
yeah, but if the boss is watching, then that's never happened.
okay, that's fair enough. But
work time is work time, Rondo.
well, I wouldn't go that far. I got half a season to go there, so that's Monday morning gone. But for that said, that's what we are doing.
Yeah.
You know, we're just doing it in the same way that other people are doing it, and people listen. Like people listen
100%.
to the nonsense, and we would get picked up now and again for our use of grammar or language.
Definitely, but it's
and
usually an English word that we get picked up on, no a Scots word.
But again, that comes from, like, I hated English at school. Like, I wasn't really good at it. I wasn't good at writing it. I wasn't good at really, you know, getting over what I meant or anything. I just didn't really like it. I preferred like maths, even looking at the physics, bizarrely. And amazingly, sitting here on this couch, camera puts £10 on. I done really well at PE. I can you laugh at that? I can you laugh at that?
You're laughing at that.
I still couldn't do English. Like, I just never ever done it. And at home, my mum would never get on to me for any. She'd get on to you for swearing, but she wouldn't get on to you for just the way I spoke, because that's just us. This is how we speak. This is how we were brought up. This is Dundonian. Proud to be it. You know, I'm not trying to be anything else.
100%. And genuinely, because you have guided you've made it absolutely clear over the last year that you're the award-winning Dode Fox podcast. You've put that front and centre of what you've been about, and I think that's helped legitimise maybe a bit of the speech in amongst the United fans where you hear it all the time. Do you feel you've
not got long to hang on to that, so we've got to milk it.
We discussed this at the weekend. Like, we won it. We won it last year. It's ours. So it's not like somebody wins it and tucks it off with.
And do you take your awards with you?
Of course we do.
They carry them all over the place with them. Look at this.
I had to take the chain off, you know. And wait a minute.
Sorry, hold on. So we got a Scots Language Award. This is the Ian that hands up for trad. Guide to the winners, a Scots Media Person of the Year 2020. This is Ian that Paul commissioned himself.
Well, the podcast paid for it. The podcast paid for it.
I only got one.
You only got one, and there was no point in sawing it in half, was there?
So, about it.
We didn't think about it. We didn't know whether to go that way or that way. So we just thought, we'll get another one.
Should have went and seen the price with, but anyway.
You know.
And you brought your other award along the night as well.
Yeah, this is for, depending on who you speak to, for being the Fanny of the Year last year in the eyes of the SFSA, the Scottish Football Supporters Association.
Big Ian McNichol. Who's
completely undeserved. But
Fan of the Year. No crowds.
No crowds.
How does that work?
The year. It was a raffle. I had the raffle that needed to get it, and I won it. So yes.
So guys, you have been great ambassadors for the awards. What I'd like to do now is introduce you to a couple of the folk that might replace you as current holders of the award. Nice. So Scots Media Person of the Year, as with all the other awards, is up for voting the new on the scotslanguageawards.com website. So if you go over there, you can have a look at all the nominees this year and you can put your vote in. There's loads of bios of them, there's additional information, but I thought we'd have a quick look at a couple of the lesser Kent of the media folk. So one of them kind of fits in what we're talking about already, and it's You're All Right. I'm just checking my notes. Aye, it's _alright on Instagram. So what they do is their notion is that there isn't enough self-help stuff, positive messaging around mental health, positive discussions around sexual behaviour and all that kind of stuff. These discussions that we're having societally, no enough of that is in Scots. So they're making an effort over their Instagram, through their blogs, through their website, to really make that stuff visible in Scots, youthful and popular. So I think we've got a couple of stuff to show the lads here. This is, so this kind of post they're putting up. Brave people that speak out will always try to be silenced after those are too feared just to be themselves. Quite an inspiring sort of slogan, the sort of stuff you're seeing a lot the new. But this then links into a Langer comment under the photo, and then links into a blog post. I think we've got a blog post of theirs. He whispers to the producer Simon. Okay, that's no it. There we go. So this is a Langer blog post in Glaswegian Scots, which is speaking about the kidnapping murder of Sarah Everard, and the fact that if you speak Scots in Scotland, there's a more than good chance you bide in a scheme or you're fae a poorer background. The reality for women fae their backgrounds is a way higher risk of sexual aggression. If you're a man fae that backgrounds, you're a way higher risk of mental health problems. And so her idea is to engage their communities using their own language. I'm just going to do a quick quote for you. I want people who are similar to myself to be proud of where they come from, no to feel like they have to change their cell or their accent to feel accepted in society. You're all right to be inclusive of Abdi, and all too often conversations about mental health are held behind closed doors, and felt that by writing in my Glaswegian dialect, I could bring the conversations out from behind the door and using social media to normalise the fact that we all deserve to be part of this conversation. Do you think, as Scots speakers, as folk for working class communities, do you think that that is a way in to help, like, crack open that kind of repressed Dundee emotional side?
Definitely, it's not going to do any harm speaking in the language that vast majority of this city speak in. Regardless of the topic that they're targeting. In this case, the mental health. So it's not going to do any harm. Give it a go. It might, even if it appeals to like one person, if it helps somebody, then it's helped, it's worked, and it's been worth it.
100% would agree with that.
Yeah, the big thing about speaking Scots or Dundonian or whatever it is we speak about it, but we very rarely write in it.
Aye.
And that's a thing. So when people see that, I don't know if they take a different, they could be speaking 110% Dundonian, but they might see it and think, well, that's not correct, that's not proper. Because again, at school, you spoke like this, but when you're writing, you're every single bit correcting whatever. So maybe it's a wee bit different like that, possibly that people take up. But
Good point. My biggest minter, I'm awfully proud to be Scottish, but my biggest embarrassment about it is we're the best educated country in Europe, right? We're the most tertiary education out of any place. We're the most college degrees, uni degrees. We're the unbelievably well educated, here, incredible education system. Most of us aren't illiterate in any of our first languages.
There's also not a single uni degree on this couch.
On that couch?
Correct.
Aye, there's two over here. So I'm not going to offer it. I'm bringing the average up.
There's barely a standard grade on this couch.
I do love minter though. Minter is a word.
It's a great word.
It's a great one. It's levelled at much of my professional output.
That's class. A lot.
Guys, we hate another. This isn't for the media award. This, Ian, is actually for the Scots Speaker of the Year. And it's for somebody that you ken very well as a professional. Andy McLaren went on the James English podcast talking about his struggles with addiction, his life in football, his Hale experience. And the Hale thing was done in Scots. We've got just a wee clip for it that James put up on Twitter today, which can...
As I say, I went to Redmond when I was 25, and it was fucking, as I say, it was bedlam, just drinking. It was Redmond 20 minutes for London, so I had a couple of mates in London, so I'd nip in there, and as I say, I was doing it about 10 months, failed a drug test. I remember being on the training ground, and the drug testers coming on, and saying to one of the boys, who's that? He says, the drug testers. Shut myself, because I know what I'd been doing the night before, and I knew if I had to pee in that boat, I knew the consequences.
Excellent stuff. So that's deserving the award, I think, because it is able to talk about things that maybe aren't best talked about in our communities. Yeah. I'm seeing some comments coming in, so I'll nip to them. Good evening, guys. For Gordon. Hiya, Gordon. So Gordy. He used to... Gordy. We presume it's Gordy.
Gordy, yeah.
Aye. Gordy. I presume so. Good evening. I'm the same in retail, dependent on the customer, talking Dundonian or properly/politely. Dundonian is proper, Gordy. Quite often the words lose letters, aye? And he failed English and all. So you're in good company here tonight, man. Billy K, I hope the surprise, I've got a surprise lined up later for the boys. Hope it isn't Charlie Adam. Believe me, Billy, it isn't.
He definitely wouldn't have fit on this couch with his arse.
Absolutely. Guys, we're almost out of time. I've got one wee surprise lined up for you. Sorry, Michael Gold. Ali, where's your accent fae? My accent's weird. I'm fae New Biggin originally. I did my uni up in Aberdeen. My father's fae New Zealand, so I bade over there for many years. I knew I sound a bit like a weirdo. To be accepted, there's weirder folk than me out there, I think.
No.
Okay. Right. Now, so something I really like about the Dode Fox podcast is you do a kind of heat-to-heat quiz every week. And it's games or goals, which I think you're pumping Ronnie at just now. Before that, it was Who Am I, at which you pumped Ronnie for about a year.
No, I won that.
Oh, you won that?
Snuck away at the end.
So, any of the other nominees for an award this year is the Scots Learning Centre. They have all sorts of educational stuff you can do at home, you can do in classrooms, you can do as an adult for fun, mostly aimed at kind of under 14-year-olds to get them engaged with the Scots language. Oh, no. These boys have complained about no getting Scots as part of their education, no being that comfortable reading and writing it. So far better to start and trial out these potentially award-winning resources than on last year's Scots Media Person of the Year award winners. Now, usually you just do it at home and you practice yourself. These boys are going to do heat to heat. So, fingers on buzzers, basically. Just shout out the answer, right?
Okay. Is this a surprise or is there a
This is the surprise. Right, hold on. I'm going to give you level 6, the most difficult one.
No.
Can you see that all right for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
So what's going to happen is you're going to see an English word on the screen. Mm-hmm. Then you see balloons coming up with Scots words on them. You hit a shout out which Scots word matches the English word.
All right. Fire on.
Are you ready for the next level?
Aye.
Fire on.
The next word is cuddle. Tapsel Teary, Coorie, Hornless,
Goorie.
Peelywally.
Oh.
The next word is
Hold on, boys, frightened.
Oh, I've got this, so it comes up.
Thrawn, Coorie, Heaver, Bayer, Flag.
Oh! I'm saying Ronnie got the F out first. Drenched, lads.
Druk it.
Yow,
Wait for the balloons.
Brooke,
Druk it!
Oh, sorry, Ronnie. That's 2 to Paul. Stubborn.
Ronnie.
Stubborn, Blomin, Tapsel Teary, Glor, Fantouche, Thrawn, Peelywally,
Thrawn.
Heaver.
That's a guess. You've never heard that one in your life.
Stop some touring yourself.
People.
I want to count what that means.
Hauk, Shilpit, Shugle,
Can't
Bayer,
like
Hornless,
It's gone. It's gone. I can't press it.
Kai,
Oh!
Shilpit, Peelywally,
Any guesses?
Can't
Roll to a type.
No idea.
Hold on, where's kind of like, did it come back?
Druke, Fantouche,
That fantouche. I'm going
you're a
fantouche.
fantouche.
Wrong!
a four, Coo,
More guesses, come on, more guesses.
Tapsel Teary,
Taps all teary.
Wrong!
Hackett,
Hackett.
Nah.
Hackett.
Wrong!
You're Hackett. You're how.
Shop it. That's a guess.
English girl.
is Creature, Shilpit, Tapsel Teary,
Taps all teary.
Shugle,
It's not.
Hauk,
Wrong!
Crater,
Creator.
Thrawn.
What's that?
The
3-2 the
next
new?
word
Don't go that
is
far, but
Dusk,
Dusk. 3-2 the new. Can be more left. I think probably 10.
Heaver,
Dusk. What do you cry
Flag.
dusk?
Hackett,
getting dark.
Lumen, Hauk,
Nah.
Shugle,
Nah.
Tapsel Teary,
Boys!
What did I call it that?
Lumen,
Roman and the Gloaming.
Kai,
Roman and Gloaming. Gloaming.
Neither of you are getting that. I just did that because like I'm the embarrassed for you. Roman and the Gloaming.
Nah.
Come on.
Clue,
Oh, jeez.
Hold on. I wait to
Yow.
come back round.
You didn't get it right. You just move on. It's us.
Thrawn,
I didn't get it. Move on.
Hornless,
Bugger on.
I can't believe you got the point for flag when we shouted at the
Shilpit.
guard.
I think we'll see that.
Heaver,
That was before you.
Flag,
It'll come back round. Come
Hackett.
on.
Lumen,
Neither of you's got that. So 3-2 still.
I missed Dusk. We just went to night time.
Carefully,
Carefully.
Oh, no, okay.
Hornless,
Hornless.
Coorie,
Wrong.
Could be Cooley,
Glor.
but I can.
Courie's a cuddle.
Fantouche, Flag.
Ah, you
The
like?
next
Nah, that's
word
not us.
is you.
You, man. Ooh.
So 3-2.
Tapsel Tiri.
Ronnie gets this, and it's a
Kai.
tiebreaker.
Yow.
Yo.
Bayer.
4-2.
The next
4-2.
word.
Get it off. Do I get another award?
Well, congratulations. There we are. The winner is Paul McNichol. Guys,
yeah.
there you
Yeah.
hear it. Paul is 50% better at Ronnie than at Scots, according to Scots Learning Centre. So genuinely, if you hate Bairns, if you're interested in getting a handle on Scots yourselves, that is the most difficult level, but there's all sorts of fun stuff to be had at scotslanguage.com/learning. The main thing we're looking at tonight is the Scots Language Awards, so check out scotslanguageaward.com. We have an event next week at the Gardyne Theatre on the 25th. We'll have all the awards, we'll have some of the last year's winners, last year's nominees, have all sorts of presentations, live hoose band, and it'll be dead sort of socially distanced for COVID and all that, so it should be dead safe. We'll also have a live show and all that'll be broadcast at the same time. So wherever you're watching this, hands up for trad, pages, all that kind of good stuff. You can tune in and join us live. But for now, join me in wishing Ronnie and Paul a very nice evening, and thanks for coming along.
Cheers up. Thank you for watching.
Cheers, guys. And good night. And next week, next Thursday, 7 p.m, just to hear the Hibs game, I'll have Billy Kay on this couch here talking all things Scots language. See you then.